October 3rd, 2022. For most of us, it was just another Monday. But for the family of 42-year-old Clara Morales, it was the day their world shattered. In the heart of Miami's vibrant Little Havana, Clara was a familiar, comforting presence. She was a devoted daughter, a kind neighbor, and a woman who, by all accounts, followed a predictable and peaceful routine. That afternoon, after a midday visit with her elderly mother, she sent a simple text to a neighbor, promising to be home by dinner time. It was a promise she couldn't keep. Clara never made it home. As the sun set and the aroma of evening meals filled the air, her apartment remained empty. Her phone, usually a constant link to her loved ones, fell silent. The hours ticked by, turning casual concern into frantic worry. By midnight, with no word from Clara, her family's worst fears took hold. They officially reported her missing, setting in motion a search that would uncover more questions than answers. What happened to Clara Morales in those few hours between her mother's home and her own? A community held its breath, and a family began a desperate search for the truth. The first, and perhaps most crucial piece of the puzzle, came from a place Clara passed every day, a corner bodega. Its surveillance camera, silently recording the comings and goings of the neighborhood, captured what might be the last known moments of Clara's freedom. There, at 4:28 p.m., the footage shows her. She's walking down the sidewalk, an umbrella tucked under her arm for the unpredictable Miami weather, a grocery bag in her hand. She looks completely at ease, just another resident heading home after running errands. But then, the scene changes. At 4:29 p.m., just 1 minute later, a dark sedan pulls up to the curb. It's impossible to make out the license plate or the model with any certainty from the grainy footage. The driver's side door opens slightly, and a hand waves in Clara's direction. We see Clara stop. She hesitates for a moment, a pause that investigators would later analyze frame by frame. What was going through her mind? Did she recognize the person? Was she afraid? Or was she simply surprised? After that brief pause, she steps toward the vehicle. The car door closes, and the sedan pulls away from the curb, disappearing from the camera's view. Just like that, Clara Morales vanishes. Who was in that car? This is the central question that has haunted both law enforcement and Clara's family. Was it a friend offering a ride on a warm afternoon? Clara's family and friends were extensively interviewed. They provided lists of acquaintances, co-workers, and even old friends. But no one they knew drove a car matching that vague description. No one had plans to meet Clara that day. It seems she wasn't expecting a ride from anyone. This deepens the mystery. If it wasn't a friend, was it a stranger? And if so, why did she get in the car? The hesitation captured on camera is telling. It wasn't the immediate, relaxed reaction of someone greeting a familiar face. It suggests a moment of decision-making. Investigators have considered several possibilities. Could the driver have been someone she knew, but perhaps didn't fully trust? An old acquaintance she hadn't seen in years, or was it something more sinister? Could the driver have lured her in under a false pretense? Perhaps by asking for directions, or pretending to be in distress? Clara was known for her kindness and willingness to help others, a trait that, in this scenario, could have been tragically exploited. The contents of the grocery bag she was carrying might have offered a clue, but it disappeared with her. Her mother recalled that Clara had mentioned she was just picking up a few things for dinner, some bread, cheese, and vegetables. Simple shopping list that speaks to the normalcy of the day she had planned. Her phone, a digital breadcrumb trail, was the next focus. But the trail went cold almost immediately. The last signal from Clara's phone was registered by a cell tower not far from where she was last seen, shortly after she entered the sedan. Then nothing. It was either turned off, destroyed, or its battery died. This sudden digital silence is alarming. In today's world, it's rare for someone like Clara, who is in constant contact with her family, to voluntarily go offline. It suggests that whoever was with her wanted to sever her connection to the outside world, and they wanted to do it fast. In the days and weeks that followed, the Little Havana community rallied. Missing posters with Clara's smiling face were plastered on every light post. Shop window and community board. Volunteers organized search parties, combing through local parks, alleyways, and abandoned lots, hoping to find any sign of her, a piece of clothing, her folded umbrella, the discarded grocery bag. They were fueled by hope and a deep love for the woman who was a fixture in their neighborhood. Her mother, heartbroken, made tearful pleas to the media, begging for any information for her daughter's safe return. "She is my life," she said in one interview, her voice trembling. "Please, if you know anything at all, just bring my Clara home." The police investigation ramped up. They re-interviewed everyone in Clara's life, digging deeper into her relationships, her work, and her daily habits. Clara worked as a part-time administrative assistant at a small law firm. Her colleagues described her as professional, quiet, and reliable. There was no drama at work, no conflicts that could explain her disappearance. Her finances were also examined. There was no unusual activity on her bank accounts or credit cards after she went missing. She hadn't withdrawn a large sum of money, nor were there any strange purchases. It was as if her life just... This lack of a clear motive is one of the most baffling aspects of the case. It wasn't a robbery, as her wallet and cards were not used. If it was a planned abduction, why? Clara wasn't wealthy. She didn't have any known enemies. She lived a simple, quiet life. This has led some to speculate about a more personal motive, one hidden from public view. Could there have been a secret relationship? A past connection that had come back to haunt her? Investigators explored these avenues, looking into her past relationships and social media activity. But Clara's digital footprint was as modest as her real-life one. She had a small, private social media profile, used mainly to keep in touch with close family. There were no hidden messages, no secret conversations, no clues to a life she was hiding. The dark sedan remains the most tangible, yet frustratingly elusive piece of evidence. With no clear make, model, or license plate, it's like looking for a ghost. Police put out an alert for any information about the vehicle, hoping another witness or a different surveillance camera might have caught a clearer image. They followed up on hundreds of tips, investigating every dark-colored sedan that was reported in the area. But each lead turned into a dead end. The car and its driver had seemingly melted back into the Miami traffic, leaving no trace. As months turned into a year, the official investigation slowed, though it never officially closed. For the family, however, the search never stops. Every day is a battle between hope and despair. They hold vigils, they keep her story alive on social media, and they continue to plead with the public for help. They believe that someone, somewhere, knows what happened. The person who drove that car, someone who might have seen something that day, something that seemed insignificant at the time but could be the key to unlocking this entire mystery. Perhaps a neighbor saw a strange car parked on their street. Maybe someone overheard a conversation. The case of Clara Morales is a chilling reminder of how quickly a life can be appended. She wasn't involved in a dangerous lifestyle. She wasn't in the wrong place at the wrong time. She was simply walking home. Her story resonates because it could happen to anyone. It's the random, senseless nature of her disappearance that is so terrifying. Her empty apartment in Little Havana remains as she left it, a silent testament to a life interrupted. Her elderly mother still waits, looking out the window, hoping to see her daughter walking up the path. What do you think happened? Was Clara taken by someone she knew? Someone who betrayed her trust in the most profound way? Or was she the victim of a random, opportunistic predator who saw a moment of vulnerability? The pause before she got into the car is the pivot point on which all these theories rest. A moment of recognition, of coercion, of decision. Till the driver of that dark sedan is found, we may never know for sure. But what we can do is keep Clara's memory alive. We can keep asking questions. We can keep sharing her story. Because somewhere out there, the truth is waiting to be found. If you have any information, no matter how small, about the disappearance of Clara Morales on October 3rd, 2022, please contact the Miami Police Department. Thank you for watching and for listening to Clara's story. It's stories like these that remind us to hold our loved ones close. If you found this video informative, please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel for more content that aims to bring light to unsolved cases. Your support helps keep these stories from being forgotten. Stay safe out there. A mother vanishes, leaving behind a life that was slowly unraveling. The only clue? Single 16-second phone call made from her phone just before she disappeared? The number belongs to her son Mateo. This is the baffling case of Clara. A woman who was once the heart of her community, but had recently become a shadow of her former self. Detectives handling Clara's disappearance felt a chill when they looked at her call log. At 4:31 p.m., on the day she went missing, a call was made from her phone. It was brief, only 16 seconds long, but it was the recipient that made them pause. 19-year-old Mateo, Clara's only son. Mateo lived just a short drive from his mother's apartment, but in many ways he was worlds away. Friends described him as quiet, intensely private, and notably estranged from his extended family. He was a young man who kept to himself, a stark contrast to the mother everyone thought they knew. As investigators dug deeper, a more complicated picture of Clara began to emerge. The woman known for organizing PTA meetings and neighborhood potlucks, the one with the ever-present warm smile, had been changing. In the months leading up to her disappearance, neighbors noticed her pulling back. Her smile seemed worn thin, replaced by a constant, quiet worry. What was troubling her? The answer, it seemed, might lie with her son. Neighbors recalled hearing arguments between Clara and Mateo in the weeks before she went missing. The hushed, tense voices drifting from her apartment hinted at a growing conflict, a private storm brewing behind closed doors. Were these typical mother-son disagreements, or something more sinister? The 16-second call became the focal point of the investigation. What can you even say in 16 seconds? Was it a desperate cry for help? A final, cryptic warning? Or was it just a pocket dial? A meaningless electronic ghost? The brevity of the call was maddening. It could mean everything, or it could mean absolutely nothing. With growing concern, officers decided to perform a welfare check at Mateo's address. They hoped to find him, to ask him about that call, about the arguments, about his mother. But when they arrived, the house was eerily silent. Inside, the home was mostly neat, almost unnervingly so. It didn't look like the scene of a struggle or a panicked departure, but there were small, out-of-place details that snagged the officer's attention. A bicycle helmet sat on a small table in the hallway, as if ready for a ride that was about to happen, or one that had just ended. And on the floor nearby, a small backpack lay unzipped, its contents partially visible. It looked like it had been hastily dropped. Mateo was gone. The house was empty. Now, detectives weren't just searching for a missing mother. They were also searching for her missing son. Was he a second victim, taken by whatever force had claimed his mother? Or was he running from something? The narrative split into two terrifying possibilities. In one scenario, Mateo was a grieving son, the last person his mother called in a moment of crisis. And now, he was either in hiding for his own safety, or had met the same terrible fate. The quiet, private young man could have stumbled upon something dangerous, something that put both him and his mother in harm's way. But there was another darker theory that detectives couldn't ignore. The arguments, his estrangement from family, his sudden disappearance, it all painted a troubling picture. Could Mateo have been involved in his own mother's vanishing? Was the 16-second call not a plea for help, but something else entirely? A final angry confrontation? A lure? The contents of the unzipped backpack became crucial. Inside, officers found a few changes of clothes, a water bottle, and a trail map for a nearby national forest. This wasn't the pack of someone planning to be home for dinner. This looked like a go bag, prepared for a quick escape, and the bicycle helmet on the table. It suggested a mode of transport that was harder to trace than a car. Mateo could be anywhere. The investigation shifted gears, expanding into a manhunt. Park rangers in the National Forest were put on alert, shown photos of the quiet 19-year-old. The search for Clara now hinged on finding Mateo. He held the key, one way or another. Days turned into weeks, and the silence from both mother and son was deafening. The community that Clara had once nurtured was now frozen in fear and confusion. How could this happen? How could a woman so loved just disappear? And how could her own son be so central to the mystery? The story of Clara and Mateo is a chilling reminder of how little we can sometimes know about the people closest to us. Behind the smiles at neighborhood potlucks and the closed doors of family homes, secrets can fester and tensions can build until they break. That 16-second call hangs in the air. A digital breadcrumb leading down to very different paths, one to a tragic loss, the other to an unthinkable betrayal. And until Mateo is found, The truth about what happened to his mother remains locked away in the silence. What do you think happened? Was Mateo a victim or a perpetrator? Let me know your theories in the comments below. These unsolved cases are so complex, and every perspective helps shed new light. Thanks for watching, and if you found this story compelling, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into mysterious cases. Stay safe out there. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're delving into a story that is both heartbreaking and deeply important. It's the story of Mateo, a young man whose life was overshadowed by a force that many of us fail to recognize as truly dangerous: emotional abuse. Through interviews with those who knew him best, a troubling picture began to emerge, one that we need to talk about. When investigators spoke with Mateo's relatives, a consistent and disturbing pattern came to light. For years, Mateo had been on the receiving end of relentless criticism and controlling behavior from someone very close to him. Clara, this wasn't the kind of abuse that leaves visible marks. There were no bruises, no broken bones. Instead, the damage was inflicted through words, through actions designed to chip away at his spirit. Imagine late-night sessions filled not with comfort but with shaming. Picture family gatherings, which should be a time of joy and connection, turning into scenes of public humiliation where Mateo was the target. Think about the constant crushing weight of being blamed for anything and everything that went wrong, whether it was his fault or not. This was the reality Mateo lived in. The abuse was persistent, a daily erosion of his self-worth. It's a chilling reminder that harm isn't always physical. The scars left by emotional and psychological abuse can be just as deep, if not deeper. They are the invisible wounds that shape a person's perception of themselves and the world around them. And for Mateo, this constant barrage of negativity had a profound impact. His friends noticed the change. They told investigators that Mateo had started to internalize the constant criticism. He wasn't just hearing Clara's voice, he was making it his own. The external blame became internal self-loathing. He began to believe the things he was being told, that he was inadequate, that he was the problem. He started turning inward, pulling away from the people who cared about him, isolating himself in a world constructed by his abuser. This internalization is a common and devastating effect of emotional abuse. When you hear something negative about yourself over and over again, especially from someone you're supposed to trust, your brain can start to accept it as truth. It rewires your thinking, making you your own worst critic. For a young person like Mateo, whose sense of self was still forming, the impact was particularly severe. Even at school, the signs were there, though they might have been easy to miss. Teachers described Mateo as a shy teenager. He was quiet, reserved, and didn't draw much attention to himself. But there was a detail that, in retrospect, is incredibly telling. He would sometimes flinch at sudden loud noises. This is a classic trauma response, a sign that his nervous system was in a constant state of high alert, always bracing for the next attack, whether verbal or otherwise. His body was living in a state of fear, even when he was in a place that should have felt safe, like a classroom. Detective Alvarez, the lead investigator on the case, knew that understanding the timeline was crucial. He began to meticulously piece together the events, the communications, and the behaviors that led up to that fateful October. By examining calls and text messages, he was able to create a digital roadmap of the escalating tension. The evidence was stark. The months leading up to the tragedy, Mateo's messages showed a clear and desperate attempt to create space. He was asking for distance, pleading for a break from the suffocating control. He was trying to find air, to find a small piece of his life that was just his own. But his attempts at setting boundaries were met with a firestorm of manipulative tactics. Clara's responses weren't conciliatory or understanding. Instead, they were filled with scolding, with guilt-tripping, with more of the same blaming language that had defined their relationship for years. For every step Mateo tried to take toward independence, Clara would lash out, pulling him back in with words designed to make him feel guilty, selfish, and wrong for even wanting to be free. This is a classic abuser's tactic. When they feel their control slipping, they double down on the manipulation. This digital trail painted a clear picture of a young man trying to escape and an abuser who refused to let go. It showed that the pressure on Mateo wasn't just a long-term issue. It was actively and intensely escalating in the final months of his life. He was trapped in a cycle he couldn't seem to break. But it wasn't just the family or the digital records that told this story. The feeling of this immense pressure was palpable, even to those on the periphery. When investigators questioned a neighbor, asking if the tension between Mateo and Clara ever seemed dangerous, the neighbor paused. It was a heavy question, and her answer was hauntingly poetic. It was like a pressure cooker, she said. Could feel it tighten. That image is incredibly powerful. A pressure cooker is a sealed container. As the heat builds, the pressure inside grows exponentially. There's no release valve, no way for the steam to escape. Just builds and builds until the container either holds or it violently explodes. This neighbor, just by being in proximity, could sense this unbearable, tightening pressure. She could feel that something was building to a breaking point. It makes you wonder how many people felt it. How many people saw the signs but didn't know what they were seeing or didn't know what to do. The shy kid in class, the friend who became withdrawn, the young man who never seemed to be able to do anything right in his family's eyes. These were all small pieces of a much larger, more dangerous puzzle. The story of Mateo is a tragedy, but it's also a powerful lesson. It teaches us about the silent, insidious nature of emotional abuse. It shows us how devastating words and control can be, and how they can lead to the most catastrophic outcomes. It highlights the importance of recognizing the signs, not just in others, but in our own lives as well. If you or someone you know is in a situation that feels like a pressure cooker, please know that there is help available. You don't have to endure it alone. Reaching out to a trusted friend, a family member, a teacher, or a professional can be the first step toward releasing that pressure safely. There are hotlines and organizations dedicated to helping people in emotionally abusive situations. We'll link some resources in the description below. Your safety and mental well-being are incredibly important. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this difficult but necessary story. If this content resonated with you, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into important cases. Your support helps us continue to raise awareness. Stay safe and be kind to one another. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a case that is as baffling as it is heartbreaking. The disappearance of Clara. What started as a simple trip to the grocery store spiraled into a mystery that left a community on edge and investigators with more questions than answers. Let's piece together the timeline and examine the strange clues left behind. It was a normal afternoon, the kind you don't remember until something makes you. Clara went out for groceries, a routine task in a life that was, by all accounts, unremarkable. But she never came home. The alarm was raised, and a search began, painting the town with a sense of dread. The first break in the case came 2 days later, but it wasn't the break anyone was hoping for. Search teams discovered Clara's sedan parked near a quiet canal, miles from her home, just west of Miami Beach. The location itself was not a place she was known to frequent. The car was unlocked, and inside the scene was eerily normal. On the passenger seat sat her grocery bag, still filled with the items she'd just purchased. Tucked inside was the paper receipt, a crisp white flag in the deepening mystery dated the very afternoon she vanished. It was a snapshot of her last known activity, a mundane errand frozen in time. Investigators pored over the vehicle, hoping to find any trace of what happened, but the car offered few secrets. There were no obvious signs of a forced entry, no shattered glass, no jimmied locks. This suggested that whoever drove the car there either had a key or was let in willingly by Clara. The initial theory of a random carjacking or abduction started to look less likely. The scene was too clean, too quiet. Security footage from her neighborhood was pulled, cameras that watched the quiet streets day and night. Detectives scoured the tapes, looking for any sign of a struggle, any unusual vehicle, any person lurking where they shouldn't be. But there was nothing. Clara's departure from her home was completely normal. She got in her car and drove away, alone. The footage showed no one following her, no one waiting for her. It was as if she had simply driven off the edge of the world. The lack of violence or any visible struggle in the car or the neighborhood only deepened the mystery. Was this a voluntary disappearance? Or was it something far more sinister, executed with chilling precision? As the forensics team meticulously processed the sedan, they uncovered a few peculiar items that didn't quite fit the picture of a routine grocery run. In the trunk, they found a small pile of wet towels, They were still damp, smelling of chlorine and canal water. Why would Clara have wet towels in her car? Had she gone for a swim? Or were they used for something else, something related to her disappearance? It was a strange detail that didn't align with her known plans for the day. But the most unsettling discovery was found on the front seat, tucked away in a simple spiral notebook. The notebook belonged to Mateo, a close figure in Clara's life. Inside, a single cryptic sentence was written over and over again, filling an entire page. The handwriting was confirmed to be Mateo's. The sentence read, "She made him small. She made him small." What could that possibly mean? The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken context. Was it a literal statement or a metaphor? Was he Mateo himself or someone else? And who was she? Was it Clara? The phrase felt like a piece of a private, intense conversation, a glimpse into a hidden dynamic. Investigators immediately focused their attention on Mateo. This wasn't just a clue. It felt like a confession, or at least a motive, scribbled obsessively. The repetition suggested a mind fixated, consumed by this one thought. Was this the key to understanding why Clara was gone? With the discovery of the notebook and the strange sentence, the investigation's focus shifted dramatically. Mateo, who had been a concerned friend on the periphery, was now a person of central interest. Detectives needed to understand his relationship with Clara and the meaning behind those chilling words. The search area was also re-evaluated. The canal where the car was found became the new epicenter of the search effort. Knowing Mateo often rode his bicycle along the paths near the canal, detectives expanded their grid. They began a painstaking search of a cluster of old, abandoned service buildings, nearby, dilapidated structures that dotted the landscape, forgotten by time. These were the kinds of places that could easily hide a secret. The search teams, a mix of law enforcement and dedicated volunteers, fanned out. Combing through the overgrown weeds and decaying walls, their hopes dwindling with each passing hour. It was a volunteer, a member of the community who had given up their weekend to help find Clara, who made the next discovery. Tucked under a loose floorboard in one of the derelict buildings was a piece of paper, folded neatly into a small square. As the volunteer carefully unfolded it, the handwriting was immediately recognizable. It was Clara's. The note was short, hurried, and devastating. It read, "If someone finds this, tell my mother I'm sorry." The words were a gut punch to everyone involved. I'm sorry. Sorry for what? For leaving. For the pain this would cause. For a mistake she made. The note seemed to suggest a level of despair, a finality that no one wanted to confront. It was written in her hand, but did she write it under duress? Was she leaving a final message knowing her life was in danger? Or was it a farewell note, implying she had chosen to disappear? This new piece of evidence threw the investigation into further turmoil. On one hand, you have Mateo's notebook filled with a single ominous phrase that points towards a potential conflict or motive. On the other hand, you have what appears to be a suicide note from Clara herself. The two clues seem to contradict each other. One suggested foul play, while the other suggested a voluntary act born of desperation. Could both be true? Could an intense emotional conflict with Mateo have driven Clara to a point of no return? Did his feeling of being made small lead to an argument or a situation that left her feeling hopeless? Or was something else going on entirely? Perhaps one clue was a red herring designed to mislead investigators. Was Mateo trying to frame a narrative, or was Clara's note a desperate attempt to protect someone? The police were now facing two divergent paths. Path 1. Mateo, consumed by a grievance, harmed Clara and attempted to stage a scene, leaving her car and planting a note to suggest she ran away, or worse. Path 2. Clara, overwhelmed by a personal crisis, possibly involving Mateo, drove to the canal, left a final apology, and disappeared of her own volition. The wet towels could fit either scenario, evidence of a struggle near the water, or evidence of a final desperate act. The problem was the lack of a body. Without Clara, it was impossible to know for sure. The canal was dredged, and divers spent days in the murky water. The surrounding land was searched again and again, but there was no sign of Clara. She had vanished, leaving behind only these cryptic, conflicting breadcrumbs. The note to her mother felt like a goodbye, yet Mateo's repetitive scrawling felt like a prelude to violence. The case remains a haunting puzzle. 2 notes, 2 handwritings, 2 possible stories. One of a woman in despair, the other of a man consumed by a dark obsession. Both centered around the same murky canal and a car full of groceries that never made it home. What do you think happened to Clara? Do you believe Mateo's note is a confession, or is Clara's note the real key? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining me today as we explore this incredibly complex case. If you found this story as compelling as I did, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into mysteries like this one. Your support means the world. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. 3 days. That's how long it took before the police brought Mateo in. Picture this, a police station, the air thick with unspoken questions. Mateo sat there, looking like a ghost. He was pale, unnervingly calm, but his eyes were black holes, empty and haunted. He told the detectives he never meant to hurt her. "I just wanted her to stop," he whispered, his voice barely audible. To stop breaking him down. Who was him? And what was she doing that was so destructive? Mateo's words painted a picture of a desperate man pushed to the edge. He continued, "I thought if she had to be away for a while, if she had time to really see what she did, she would change." He seemed to believe it, clinging to this idea that a forced separation, a timeout, would somehow fix a lifetime of damage. It sounds almost naive, doesn't it? A son hoping to mend a broken relationship by creating distance. But the detectives weren't buying this story of a well-intentioned lesson. They had been working the case for 72 hours straight, and they had more than just his word to go on. The tone in the interrogation room shifted. The detectives, patient until now, laid their cards on the table. They presented the evidence. Forensic findings from her car, which had been discovered abandoned near a remote canal. Traces of something, ... or someone. Details from the scene itself. The quiet, desolate area where the car was found. As they detailed their findings, Mateo's calm facade began to crack. The composure he'd held onto so tightly started to crumble, piece by piece. The paleness of his skin seemed to intensify, and a tremor ran through his hands. The man who walked in looking composed was now visibly unraveling. Faced with irrefutable facts, Mateo's story changed. Reached for a pen and paper and with a shaking hand produced a short written statement. It was a confession of sorts, but one still wrapped in denial. He admitted he had driven his mother out to that quiet spot on the edge of the city. He wrote that they had argued, the same old fight they always had. He said he begged her, pleaded with her to stop speaking to him in that way she did, the way that tore him down, that broke his spirit. His statement confirmed he left her there. He just got out of the car, leaving her inside, and walked away into the afternoon haze. But he insisted, right there on the paper, that he never intended for her not to come back. He swore he thought she would find her way home. But let's pause and think about that. He leaves his mother in a remote area with no easy way back. Did he really believe she would just reappear, change for the better? Or was this a calculated act, masked by a story of desperation? The detectives read his statement, their faces unreadable. He knew this was only part of the truth. What really happened in that car? What was said during that final explosive argument? And who was the him that Mateo was so desperate to protect? Was it himself? A friend? A brother? This mystery person seems to be the key, the epicenter of the whole tragic event. The investigation now had a new focus, uncovering the identity of this third person. Was it a family secret Mateo was trying to keep buried? The detectives started digging into the family's past, interviewing friends, neighbors, anyone who knew them. They were looking for a crack in the family's history, a hidden trauma that could explain such a drastic act. What they began to uncover was a complex web of relationships, strained to the breaking point. It wasn't just Mateo and his mother. There was a whole history of pain and conflict that had been simmering for years, hidden behind the closed doors of their home. We learned that Mateo wasn't the only child. He had a younger brother, Leo. Leo was the him. He was the one Mateo felt he needed to protect. Friends described Leo as sensitive, fragile, and the primary target of their mother's relentless criticism. She saw his quiet nature as a weakness, his artistic pursuits as a waste of time. For years, Mateo had watched as his mother's words chipped away at Leo's confidence, leaving him withdrawn and anxious. Mateo had tried to intervene, to shield his brother, but it only ever made things worse, turning their mother's focus onto him instead. He felt trapped, powerless to stop the emotional onslaught against the person he loved most. The day everything fell apart, it started with a phone call.
Hey, Leo had called Mateo, his voice cracking with despair.
Their mother had found his portfolio of drawings and torn them to shreds, calling them worthless, just like him. That was the final straw for Mateo. He saw his brother, the vibrant, creative soul he knew, being systematically crushed. He later told detectives it was like watching someone slowly being erased. I had to make her see. I had to get her away from him. That afternoon, he confronted his mother, not with anger at first, but with a desperate plea. He drove her out of the city, hoping the quiet and the isolation would force her to listen, to finally understand the damage she was causing. But the conversation in the car didn't go as planned. It wasn't a calm discussion, it was a firestorm. Every attempt he made to explain was met with denial and more cutting remarks. She turned her venom on him, dredging up every mistake, every perceived failure of his own life. The argument escalated until Mateo, seeing red, screamed at her to stop. He couldn't take it anymore. In that moment, he said he felt a snap. He got out of the car, slammed the door, and just walked away, leaving her screaming behind him. He walked for miles, the sounds of their fight ringing in his ears. Convinced that leaving her alone was the only way to make the noise stop, both in the car and in his head. His intention, he claimed, was for her to have to walk back, to have hours to think about her actions. He never imagined she wouldn't be able to. But the canal was treacherous. The evening was growing dark, and she was an older woman in an unfamiliar place.
Ow.
Did he truly not foresee the danger?
Ow.
Or did a part of him, a dark subconscious part, hope she wouldn't return? This is the question that haunts the case. Is Mateo a misguided protector who made a terrible miscalculation? Or is he a cunning manipulator who planned the perfect crime and is now playing the victim? The line between protection and destruction is razor thin, and Mateo was walking it. As the full story came to light, it became clear this wasn't a simple case of a son abandoning his mother. It was the tragic culmination of years of hidden family turmoil, a desperate act born from a desire to save someone. But in his attempt to be a hero for his brother, Mateo may have become something else entirely. The law would have to decide his fate, but the moral judgment is far more complicated. What would you do to protect someone you love? How far is too far? Mateo's story forces us to look into the shadows of family life and ask ourselves what secrets might be hiding behind our own closed doors. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into a truly complex and heartbreaking case. It really makes you think about the unseen struggles people face every day. If you found this story compelling, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss an upload. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Stay safe, and we'll see you in the next video. In today's deep dive, we're exploring a case that forces us to confront some of the most difficult questions about justice, responsibility, and the unseen wounds of emotional harm. It's the story of Mateo and Clara, a story that ended in tragedy and left a family, a community, and a legal system grappling with its devastating aftermath. This isn't just a legal case. It's a stark reminder of how words can become weapons and how the lines of accountability can blur in the fog of psychological distress. Prosecutors brought serious charges against Mateo, alleging unlawful confinement and, most devastatingly, causing Clara's death through neglect. Their case wasn't just about a single action, but about a pattern of behavior. They painted a picture of persistent psychological harm inflicted upon Mateo, highlighting his fragile mental state leading up to the incident. The official court documents used precise, almost clinical language. Clara was taken, and later, she did not survive. For the family, this detached wording was a source of profound pain, complicating their grief. How do you mourn when the circumstances are so tangled in a history of complex and damaging relationships? This language, while legally necessary, felt like it erased the raw human tragedy they were living through. It was a legal statement, not a reflection of their heartbreak. Mateo's defense team didn't deny the events, but they offered a different lens through which to view them. They argued that Mateo's actions were the culmination of long-term provocation and unbearable psychological pressure. This wasn't an act of malice, they contended, but a desperate, tragic breaking point. They aimed to shift the narrative from one of a perpetrator and a victim to a more complex story of cause and effect. where the accused was himself a victim of years of emotional battering. This defense strategy forced the court to look beyond the final fatal act and into the long, dark history that preceded it. They wanted the jury to understand the why behind the what, suggesting that Mateo's mind had been pushed to a place where rational decision-making was no longer possible. To build this defense, witness statements became crucial. Friends, neighbors, and extended family members came forward, and their testimonies began to form a chilling mosaic. They described a household where what might have started as correction or discipline slowly morphed into a relentless campaign of psychological erosion. It was a constant barrage of words, criticisms, and manipulations that systematically dismantled Mateo's sense of self-worth and stability. Witnesses spoke of a young man who became increasingly withdrawn, anxious, and erratic. His equilibrium, they said, was visibly altered over time. It was a classic story of how emotional abuse can be invisible to the outside world, happening behind closed doors, yet its effects were profound and ultimately catastrophic. The courtroom heard how a home, which should have been a sanctuary, became a crucible of mental anguish for Mateo. Faced with these two powerful, conflicting narratives, one of criminal neglect and the other of extreme psychological duress, the judge made a critical decision. They ordered comprehensive psychological evaluations for Mateo. This wasn't just about determining his fitness to stand trial. It was about delving into the very core of his mental state. The court needed experts to help unravel the tangled threads of his psyche. Was he capable of understanding the consequences of his actions? To what extent had the alleged long-term emotional harm impaired his judgment? The case file, once a straightforward criminal proceeding, was transforming into something far more complex, a detailed case study on the devastating ripple effects of chronic emotional harm. The outcome of the trial now hinged not just on evidence of the act itself, but on the interpretation of a young man's shattered mind. The psychological reports came back, and they were sobering. Experts detailed a condition consistent with complex trauma, a result of prolonged exposure to a hostile and emotionally volatile environment. They described a state of hypervigilance, emotional dysregulation, and a distorted perception of reality. Essentially, Mateo's brain had been rewired by stress and fear. The reports suggested that his actions, while extreme, could be understood as a dysfunctional survival response, a desperate attempt to gain control in a situation where he felt utterly powerless. This didn't excuse the tragic outcome, but it provided a crucial context that the jury had to consider. It put a name to the invisible injuries that the defense had been describing all along, lending scientific weight to the argument that Mateo's mind was not that of a typical defendant. This case forces us to ask a fundamental question. Where does responsibility lie when the lines are so blurred? Can we hold someone fully accountable for their actions when their mind has been systematically broken down by another? Our legal system is built on the idea of intent and rational choice. But what happens when that capacity for rational choice is severely compromised by years of psychological torment? This is the dilemma that the jury, and by extension, all of us, must wrestle with. There is no easy answer. On one hand, a life was tragically lost, and justice must be served for Clara. On the other hand, there is compelling evidence of profound suffering that directly contributed to the tragedy. It's a moral and legal tightrope, and the verdict, whatever it may be, will have lasting implications for how our society understands and prosecutes cases involving long-term emotional abuse. Ultimately, the story of Mateo and Clara is a tragedy in every sense of the word. It's a story with no winners, only loss. It serves as a powerful and painful lesson about the real-world consequences of emotional violence. Words have power. They can build people up, but they can also tear them down with devastating efficiency. This case is a stark warning that the wounds we cue and see are often the deepest and most dangerous. It highlights the urgent need for greater awareness and intervention in situations of emotional abuse, before they escalate to a point of no return. It's a call to action for all of us to be more vigilant, more compassionate, and to recognize the signs of distress in those around us. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health or is in a difficult emotional situation, please know that help is available. There are resources and people who want to support you. We'll leave some links in the description below. Your well-being matters. Thank you so much for joining us for this difficult but important discussion. If you found this analysis valuable, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into the complex issues that shape our world. Stay safe and take care of each other. Months after the media vans and the yellow tape had vanished, the neighborhood settled back into its familiar, quieter rhythm. The frantic energy of the search for Clara was replaced by a heavy, lingering silence. For Clara's mother, every evening was the same ritual. She would light a small candle and place it in the window, a tiny beacon in the growing darkness, illuminating the folded note Clara had left behind. Its words, now memorized, were a constant, painful echo in the quiet house. The community was left to grapple with a complicated, messy kind of grief. There was no single villain, no simple answer. There was a mother lost to the world, son facing the severe consequences of his actions, and a long, tangled history of words left unchecked. Of casual cruelties that had festered behind closed doors. It was a tragedy that didn't fit neatly into a headline. Back at the precinct, Detective Alvarez kept a small, crinkled grocery receipt on his desk, tucked under a paperweight. It was a mundane list: milk, bread, eggs, apples. An ordinary artifact from an ordinary day that had become the anchor to an entire human life. A tangible reminder of the woman who was no longer here to buy them. It grounded him, reminding him that behind every case file, every piece of evidence, was a person with hopes, routines, and a story. In the interviews that followed, a clearer, more painful picture began to emerge. Friends, neighbors, people who had known Clara and Mateo for years finally spoke about the things that had always gone unspoken. They talked about the subtle barbs, the constant belittling, the atmosphere of control that had defined their home. They described how casual cruelty, when allowed to calcify over years, can become as destructive as any physical blow. It was a slow erosion of a person's spirit, happening in plain sight, yet somehow invisible to everyone. The case was officially closed. The legal system delivered its verdict, and Mateo faced the consequences for his actions. But the story didn't end there. It sparked a citywide conversation, a difficult and necessary dialogue about the insidious nature of emotional abuse. People started talking about the red flags, the resources available, and the importance of creating support systems for those who feel trapped and voiceless. It was a stark lesson that a person's disappearance isn't always rooted in a single, explosive moment of violence, but can be the tragic culmination of a long, slow history of being worn down day after day. This case changed how the department looked at domestic disputes. It wasn't just about shouting matches anymore. It was about understanding the patterns, the psychological warfare, the quiet desperation that can brew in a home. They started training officers to recognize the more subtle signs of coercive control. To listen not just to what was being said, but what was being left unsaid. It was a small change, born from a great loss, but one that Alvarez hoped would make a difference for the next Clara. The file on Clara's case was thick, filled with reports, photographs, and witness statements. But the final piece of evidence wasn't a forensic report or a legal document. It was a small, folded note, found tucked away in Clara's room. On it, in her familiar handwriting, were just 6 words: "Tell Mama, I forgive her." Sometimes late at night when the station was quiet, Detective Alvarez would pull out the file. He wouldn't review the evidence or reread the reports. He'd just look at that note. He didn't keep it as a piece of evidence. Kept it to remember the voice behind the file number. A voice that was soft, human, and now forever gone. It was a reminder that the most important part of his job wasn't just closing cases, but honoring the lives they represented. It was a reminder of the silence that can be the loudest cry for help. Thank you for joining me for this story. It's a powerful reminder to listen to the silences and to be there for one another. If you found this story meaningful, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more. Stay safe and take care of each other.